All right, today in my one-man sauna Oktoberfest series, we have Paulaner Oktoberfest Bier. Paulaner is from 1634 as a brewery, the youngest of the big six Oktoberfest breweries, but still 400 years old. It comes from a monastery brewed by monks. They are responsible for the Doppelbock style through their Salvatore beer. And then they also were at the forefront of pushing Oktoberfest in the 70s from the old Märzen style to the lighter, golden, crisper Festbier style. So their Oktoberfest beer, Festbier, is considered a kind of benchmark for the style. Paulaner, you've probably heard of this brewery. Of the big six, it's probably the most famous around the world. They are co-owned by Heineken, so taking advantage of that kind of distribution network, you can usually seek out a Paulaner anywhere in the world. I know wherever I visited, I'm not shocked at all to see Paulaner on tap in a local restaurant or wherever. A very, very, very famous German beer brewery. I think probably the one of the biggest breweries in Germany. They still make the beer, the Munich Helles, in Munich, so it's still local. They're still tied to the city. Their Oktoberfest tent is probably the biggest and most well known, and perhaps lots of the tourists seek out the Paulaner tent. There's a lot going on in there. The classic kind of stereotypes of Oktoberfest with the big steins and the brass bands and the giant golden lagers of fest beers. So that is all Paulaner. So I'm expecting from this to be your kind of benchmark fest beer. I'm expecting it to be very, very high standard, near the top in terms of the top six in terms of quality and where I rank it. I imagine that it's not going to be doing anything out of the ordinary. There's not going to be anything kind of rustic or too malty or anything. And it's just going to tick every box nailed on for the style of fest beer, bang on in the middle. So it probably won't be my favorite of the six because I like a little bit of something to shout out at me, but I imagine this is going to be a very, very solid fest beer of the big six fest beers. So let's crack it open and see if Paulaner is still nailing the fest beer that they pioneered back in the 70s. Yeah, good look at the label. All right, that has poured a beautiful golden color, typical of a fest beer. The head is a little bit smaller than some of the other fest beers that I've tried, but it looks absolutely bang on for the style. When I cracked open the bottle, I got a kind of hit of that kind of crackery malt aroma. So let's see. Yeah, kind of bready, crackery malt aroma mixed in with a kind of little bit of a zing, like a zesty zing of the hops. Yeah, a little bit floral, a little bit zesty. Smells like an absolute banger of a beer. Exactly what I was expecting. Something very crisp, very light, and very, very drinkable, I imagine. So let's see how it tastes. Yeah, very, very nice. Nice, decent amount of bitterness, a little bit similar to the Löwenbräu. So kind of owing towards their kind of German Pilsner style, as opposed to what was I drinking yesterday? As opposed to the Spaten, which is kind of more kind of subtle, more kind of Helles leaning. This is very much a bright, and hoppy kind of Festbier, beautiful kind of slightly sweet kind of honeyed malt that follows after that kind of initial zing and bitterness from the hops. Yeah, very kind of very approachable beer, very drinkable. I could see why many kind of standard normal beer drinkers would flock to this if they were visiting Oktoberfest. It nails all of the kind of points you'd expect from a fest beer, and you could definitely chug quite a few steins of this for sure. That beautiful kind of malt sweetness is light, it's crackery, nothing dense about it at all. It's just very inviting on the mouthfeel, and it's definitely not going to fill you up if you're drinking a bunch of these. Um, that bitterness is there. It's prominent, but it's not too much. It invites you back for more. It leaves that kind of memory on your tongue that you want to replenish, which is exactly what this kind of beer should be about. Very well balanced beer for sure. Um, kind of the initial aroma I got off of it was a little bit zesty, a little bit of a zing, a little bit of floral in the mouth. Definitely those kind of herbal notes are coming through. So you get the kind of order of it is the initial zing and bitterness, then the sweet kind of honeyed malt, white bread malt, and then you get that kind of last following of the herbal notes from the hops, which is quite a journey. It's quite nice in terms of that kind of mouthfeel and the taste profile. I'd say it's right in the middle between the Löwenbräu and the Spaten. The Spartan is kind of Hellas leaning, and the Löwenbräu was dry and like leaning towards the kind of uh, bitterness of a German Pilsner. I'd say that the Paulaner is on the bittering side, but it's not quite as far as the Löwenbräu. And then it's a beautiful rounded sweetness, so not as dry as well as the Löwenbräu. So it's kind of in between the kind of Heller style and the German Pilsner style, in this kind of Festbier category, exactly as I thought. It's kind of smack bang in the middle. It's beautifully balanced. It's beautifully rounded. It gives you a bit of a kick in the bitterness, but not too much. It gives you enough kind of malt sweetness, but not too much. It all marries together, and then it kind of has that journey that I'm talking about. It has that kind of zingy zest, I guess, from the Hallertau hops. The maltness is complex enough, but still quite light and honeyed. And then the kind of ending kind of mouthfeel, the journey ends on that kind of herbal notes, which leaves a kind of not astringent, but a kind of a dance on your tongue that makes you want to sip again. Which is yeah, man. Like you can see why this is drunk in the buckets full at Oktoberfest. Can't fault this beer. It's the biggest brewery in Germany, I think, for a reason. It probably suffers from that success in terms of as a Paulaner, but they are widely worldwide regarded for a reason. They do make great lagers. I'm not sure if I'm going to put this as number one in my top six favorite Oktoberfest beers. I'm someone that kind of leans towards, wanting more character, and this nails everything in terms of in the middle, in terms of balance, and as I've described, I would happily drink a lot of this. If I ended up in the Paulaner tent at Oktoberfest for whatever reason, I would not be complaining at all. I might be hoping that I was, might be able to get hold of an Augustina or whatever. But if this was in my hand, I'd be drinking it and I'd be very happy with it. of the six, it sits closer to the top than the bottom for sure. Um, a fantastic beer, one well worth trying. And like I said, it's something that's their beers are something that are quite easily accessible in a lot of places around the world. So people might write them off as like a go-to German lager in terms of that kind of mystique or like that kind of craft sense of like, oh, have you managed to get hold of this or whatever? When something is so readily available, it kind of loses its kind of value in people's minds. But Paulaner, their Festbier, yeah, they really do nail it. It's bang on for sure. And like I said, I think of the three that I've tried, of the big six, I've tried Levenbräu, I've tried Spaten, and I've tried Paulaner. Um, I think Paulaner might just edge Levenbräu and Spaten in third so far. I did like the Levenbräu. I did like the dryness and the bitterness, but this is a fest beer, and just that little bit of malt, kind of honeyed sweetness. It does offer that little bit more that Löwenbräu is lacking, which I guess they're going more for a kind of a bitter, kind of more hoppy kind of fest beer, whereas this one is more in the middle. So yeah, it depends which day you catch me on, but I think Paladin just edges it so far. I'm very interested to see what the others come up with, in particular Augustina. That would be the brewery that I would go to if given the choice of going to Oktoberfest, and maybe I changed my mind after this series of having actually reviewed and thought about each of the big six. But yeah, no, for sure, would be very happy to end up in the Paulaner tent. We all know about German cars, but German beer, lads, bloody hell. They really do know how to make a beer, don't they? Yeah. 6%, you can't tell at all. It is really just a fantastic beer. Um, I don't know if this kind of I'm trying to get it going again, but I don't know if this kind of lack of head retention is just because they're such a macro brewery now, and I guess their kind of processes are perhaps impacted by Heineken. You'd like to think that Paulaner has kept their very much German traditions and processes and blah blah blah. But I mean, if you get kind of co-bought by Heineken, there's no doubt that they will be trying to impact some of the efficiencies and blah blah blah. And the look of this beer is much more macro than any of the others I've seen, especially in that kind of head retention. And I'm not sure if that's just a kind of result of efficiencies or money saving that has been imparted by Heineken being involved in the ownership of this. But it's certainly not kind of impacted the flavor of the beer. I imagine that um, it's not going to be my number one because I'm sure that there's going to be another one of the big six is really going to sing to me in terms of the malt complexity and that pairing together with those noble hops. I think there's going to be one that is really going to shine in that aspect. I have my kind of suspicions as to which one that's going to be. This drinks like uh, a very fine beer, which hits all of the stylistic points nailed on, but is kind of sterile in that sense. It's kind of like it it's kind of like it feels like a modern built building that has all of the amenities, the swimming pool, the sun deck, the kind of architecture is clean cut and perfect, and you can't fault it, and you'd happily live there. And I'm hoping that one of the other big six is going to be, a chateau castle type thing that is also a wonderful building, but has, a little bit more character to it. So this is the modern mansion of the big six, I guess. And I'm hoping for a bit of a chateau in another one of the beers. I don't know if you'll get another beer reviewer giving you that kind of analogy or comparison, mate. This is a beer stroke architecture review channel now. I'm going to start comparing beers to architecture. Yeah. I think of the ones I've tried so far, this is the nicest label so far, though. I like the artwork on it. Um, they're a bit collectible, I guess, because they change every year. Yeah, I like the look of that. It looks cool. It's got the big German ladies carrying the steins and the kind of fun fair and the kind of Oktoberfest feel of it. Um, and I've got Spartan over here, Spartan. Um, they've tried to give a bit of the Oktoberfest vibe to it. I don't know if that's focusing, but it just looks a little bit less. I don't know. It's not as cool. It's a bit yeah, it's a bit shit in terms of the artwork. But no, the Paulaner, their artist has done a good job, I'd say. Um, yeah, nice bottle this. It's even got the kind of branding on the glasswork as well, so nice bottle. Beer cap is just the standard. Um, you're hoping for a special beer cap as well, but you don't get it. No, I don't think any of them have got a special beer cap. I am a bottle cap collector, so always interesting. To sum this up, I would say that this is the clinical Festbier. This nails on all points, and you can't fault it, but that's a little bit boring, if you understand me. You'd happily drink it. You could drink a lot of it at Oktoberfest, but I'd say after a few, you'd be like, oh, I just want a little bit more malt, or I want a little bit something more, I don't know, a bit more rustic, or a little bit kind of bit of character in it. And this is very, very clinical. It's got macro written all over it. Uh, so yeah, I'd say it's got to be up there with in terms of the big six. It's going to be up there nearer the top, but it can't be a winner. Surely it can't be a winner. It's winning right now for me, but it can't be a winner. You got Augustina and you got Hacker to come. Those boys have got to pull it out of the bag. It's warming up a bit. I think this tastes the best, uh, a bit cooler. I'd say about 9 degrees. Now this is warming up. This must be about 11, 12. The journey I was talking about is fading. It's not so much the zing, malt sweetness, herbal like aftertaste. It's all converging together, which isn't quite the same experience as it's warming up. So I'd say if you're going to drink this and you've got it in like a normal fridge, I'd say take it out, let it sit for about 19 minutes. That's what I did. I ate about 19 minutes and then crack it open, pour it. And in that kind of little window, 2, 3, 4 minute window, after pouring, it's going to be beautiful. And then you're going to get down to what it is now, which is it's still good, but it's not as impressive in terms of that journey I was talking about, which actually should be part of the review. Because if you're going to be drinking your 2 liter big kind of Stein at Oktoberfest, you want a beer that is going to taste great for a long time. And this is fantastic in the beginning, but as it's warming up and the carbonation's less, it's tasting a little bit flabby, which is typical of a beer made by like macro breweries. Um, I guess their science and their processes and blah 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 is that they make the perfect, in their mind, the perfect tasting beer at the perfect tasting temperature and blah blah blah. And kind of your smaller craft breweries with hundreds of years of tradition and little quirks and stuff, their beers, just their recipes and what they do, it produces something that has real character and that kind of, I don't know, for me it tastes better. If a beer tastes better as it kind of slowly warms up, for me that's a sign that it's you know it's a its processes and the brewery and blah 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 has a long standing history. I don't know if that makes sense to someone, but they're taking time to perhaps do like 2 or 3 decoctions or something like that, like that malt character kind of sticks around. Um, and it's not just that like it's nailed on at 8, 7, 8, 9 degrees, but even as it warms up, it doesn't turn into kind of like a flabby flat beer. It just, the character changes, but it's still like really nice to drink at 12, 13, 14 degrees. Um, yeah, I'd say the end of this beer is a little bit flat and flabby compared to the Löwenbräu and the Spartans. And I think that this is happening because uh, Paulaner is owned by Heineken, and they probably have kind of efficiencies and little process things that come from that kind of macro level brewery, that perhaps the more crafter kind of breweries don't have, and that lends to that kind of malt flavor sticking around and changing in a nicer way as the beer warms up and the carbonation levels drop. So I think Paulaner nails the kind of macro Festbier taste at 6 to 9 degrees centigrade. When they first serve it, it hits you with that journey that I talked about. But as it warms up, it dissipates and there's not enough kind of malt character in the beer to stick around for those temperature changes, which does change a beer. And I think that, like, maybe it's something to do with decoction or lagering, or the other breweries are using a kind of natural filtration process of a longer lagering period or something, whereas the kind of more macro processes of speed and efficiency, blah blah blah, is more sanitized, and so that lends towards nailing it at the right temperature, but then you're losing out as the beer kind of changes down the glass. So I think Paulaner suffers a bit from going a bit flabby as you're getting through that beer. And I imagine at Oktoberfest, unless you're some kind of expert speed drinker, you're going to get, halfway down a Stein and you're going to start thinking, this ain't as good as it was when I first sipped it. Whereas some of the other beers are going to taste the taste changes as the temperature changes and as the carbonation changes, but they will stay nicer and more inviting and have more character as you drink through the beer, especially a 2 liter beer, than the Paulaner. So Paulaner, fresh and cold, bangs it down here at the bottom of the glass, warm and flatter. It's a little bit flabby for me. Yeah, it's not got the character of a beer that lasts the whole glass. That said, I have enjoyed it, and cheers.